And here is Ryan Estrada.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Ryan, and I'm here to give you tips and tricks about being a filmmaker, and also let you know you've all been tricked because I'm not a filmmaker. But hopefully, that is going to be helpful because I can give the point of view of someone who is not a filmmaker in how to make films, which is something I have experience with. I'm going to share my screen to show my website here real quick, just to show what it is I actually do. I'm a website. I call myself an artist, author, and adventurer. Basically, I make comic books mostly. The latest one, as Kay mentioned, is Banned Book Club. It's won a bunch of awards. It's up for an Eisner Award right now, which is like the Oscar of comics. It's my wife's story about growing up in Korea and being interrogated by the KCIA. Bunch of other books, creator-owned comics, things about my adventures. I've worked on Star Trek and Popeye and Garfield and Flash Gordon and all things like that. Lots of anthologies, comics about my travels, like kind of comics journalism, and I do a lot of radio work, and then I have a little bit of experience in film, in that I've kind of like helped out on stuff in weird ways. I was a voiceover artist in a terrible Bollywood movie called Apka Surur, the movie, the real love story. There's 2 colons in that name and 2 words that are misspelled, and it's a very bad movie. Um, I've had the experience of being a zombie in a horror comedy. I've been a prop designer on a kids movie. Just kind of like someone needs help, and they're like, Ryan, can you do this one thing? And I never really got into filmmaking other than like stuff on YouTube until Liquid Arts. And I think, well, there was actually before Liquid Arts took over, there was a Busan 24-hour film festival, and then Liquid Arts expanded it to a 72-hour film festival, made it a much bigger thing. Partnered with the film festival thing. The Busan International Short Film Festival, and so I have participated in Liquid Arts 72-hour film festival and the preceding event uh, almost every time now. The first time I directed a weird little puppet film of like I drew characters that's put them on popsicle sticks and moved in front of a camera. But then for the next 2, I worked with a filmmaker named Tim Paw, who is kind of an expert filmmaker, and just kind of I wrote the script and then let him do his thing. And then this year I decided to finally direct one myself, and I'll we don't need to watch the whole thing, but I'll just kind of show you what that looks like.
Look up, look down, it's Chonkers. Everywhere you go, you see that cat. Never thought I'd see a kitty manage to look so pretty, even if she's dangerously fat.
What are you feeding her?
Just cat food.
Hmm.
It's not normal, right?
I wouldn't worry about it too much, but she is a real.
It's totally bonkers. It's totally chonkers.
Yes, I understand that this number is for emergencies only. No, that is not a joke. She's just very big. Yes. No, you are right. I'm sorry.
My, how you've grown, little chonkers. Quadrupled in size overnight. Probably don't need to continue to feed you. You still have a healthy appetite.
If you're just tuning in.
So basically, the plot is just there's a big cat, and it keeps getting bigger. It's a weird little combination of live action and very, it was made in 72 hours, so the animation is mostly stuff jiggling. There's some stuff that's just represented in stills. We we got some locations like this looks like a fancy location. This is literally just at in a park. There's a museum, and this is like a photo zone, and we just snuck in and shot real quick in the photo zone. And if we zoomed out like one frame, you'd see the signs and museum stuff. Shot at the radio station here, and then this was my favorite bit of it.
United States.
Chonkers, hello, my little girl, my little darling. What a sweet little thing you are. But apparently you're very big for your age, and that's why nobody wants you or loves you. How nonsense that is, because you're so loved by so many people. Oh.
Yes, the city has signed a plan.
I got Malcolm McDowell in our film. That was fun. That was just a little fun surprise that I wanted to have for everybody. More just this is in a park where we zoomed in. It looked like an army base, and more Malcolm McDowell.
Thank you, sir.
Ah, how sweet. How sweet.
And yeah, and then it ends with the apocalypse as the cat gets too big and destroys everything. But we don't need to watch the whole thing. All right. So that's the kind of film that I made. And basically my goal was, I'm not like Tim. I'm not a filmmaker. I don't have the equipment. I know there are places to get it, but I figured that I could put in a lot of work and try and get the equipment and try and learn everything to make it look like professional film, or I could take advantage of what I had and kind of make my limitations into style. I decided I was going to make everything with my cell phone and crayons. Chonkers is entirely done in crayons on paper. The only equipment that I got was I went to Daiso and I got a phone tripod for like $5. And I just went around that. Now, what that allowed me to do is, like when I was working with Tim, if you're doing a film in that short a time, in 72 hours, we basically had to make it one location, because once you're getting like microphones and having to worry about sound and lighting and everything, like it just takes way too much time to travel all these locations. Whereas I'm just going to use my phone. I'm going to get on my bike with my wife, cast my wife as the actor, and we just rode around to wherever we needed to go and shot it. You'll notice that everybody's wearing masks in the film. And I figured like, well, if they're wearing masks, then we don't have to record sound. We can just record the sound separately and it'll work. It did not work. It looks very cheesy. But it works for that film because, like I said, I made my limitations into style. It feels like, it's a giant cat destroying Busan. So it's kind of like a kaiju film. And when we think about those, we think about like, all the ones that were imported to America and badly dubbed and people's lips don't match their mouths. So it kind of felt like that. And I wanted that combination of like, I wanted to put everything into it, make it the best I could, but with the materials I'm using, make it feel handmade, and like some of the humor comes from that. So some things that made it look simple were planned, and some of the things that made it look simple weren't, but because there were things in it that were planned, it plays like I planned it, and some of it plays like a joke. Some of it, I had to cut a lot of the dialogue from scenes like that where I record the dialogue separately because it's funny, but if it goes on too long, it's suddenly not. But basically, I want to break down what I do into kind of steps. That there's basically the 3 steps, specifically thinking of a 72-hour film festival, something like that, are the planning, writing, and shooting. Well, planning and writing are kind of the same set, shooting and editing. So with a challenge like that, you don't want to think about a story in advance, because if you're doing something in a limited period of time and you do something that you've wanted to do for a long time or that you've thought a lot about, you're going to be disappointed in the end product, because you have something you want to do and your limitations are going to mean you can't make the thing you want to do. So if you're doing something with a lot of limitations, start over and think of a new idea that works with those limitations, because then you have something new that would not exist otherwise, and there's nothing to compare it to. There's no version in your head that you're comparing it to that you're gonna dislike it. When you start writing something, you really want to, the things you want to start thinking about before you come up with an idea are locations, equipment, and actors. That was, like I said, with a challenge like that, you can't write a story until it starts. There's prompts and you know all that. But what I made sure to do is think about, you know, in previous ones, there's always, here are the actors in it. With Chonkers, I really didn't know what I was going to do, so I didn't really cast any actors. I just knew my wife, you know, lives with me, so it was going to be very easy to cast her and stuff. But I figured I want to do animation, so I thought it might all be animation, but if I come up with a story where I need people, I just had people in mind that I could like grab real quick. Now, the one important thing to think about is locations. Think about what you have to work with. In previous ones where I was working with Tim, we didn't do any of that. And we'd get the prompts, I'd go home and write a script and then give it to Tim, and he'd have to figure out suddenly what set can we use today. And like the 2 years we did it, both of them ended up, the director and all the actors would have to like break into a university where they knew there were no security guards watching and film in just an empty room, because like they couldn't find anything that matched the specific, you know, one takes place in a police station, and they're like, we can't just go in the police station, Ryan. And the other one was like in a scientific lab, and they're like, I don't know any laboratories that will let us shoot today. So it was always in a university. I just thought about, like, I had seen that photo zone at that park, and I was like, that's something. I got to think of like some military thing so I can just quickly shoot there. I worked at the radio station. I knew that's something that's available to me. And I know if I'm shooting at the radio station, there's lots of people there who like the sound of their own voice. So I can very easily get them to volunteer to do stuff. Things like that. And I know, just like, you know, I live right in the middle of the river and the beach. So I knew all these things were available to me. And I knew about the abandoned water park where I shot the apocalypse. So I just had those in mind. And so then when I sat down to write a story, I was able to use those. Whereas like if I had written a story about the military and not known a place, it would have ended up terrible, because it'd just be like, I don't know, I'll just shoot it in my apartment and it doesn't look like a military base. But because I had that in advance in mind, I was able to make that work. So just take advantage of cool locations around you. And yeah, the kind of the trade-off is, if you want to do all in one location, you know, then you can bring in, if you know anyone that does lighting and you know people that do sound, it's easier to get everyone in one place and get everything done. If you're going in a short period of time and you need to shoot in a bunch of locations, that's going to be very difficult to coordinate. Which is why it was very easy for me just to go around with my little Daiso tripod and shoot it and worry about if it fit later. Once you have an idea, one thing to do with, if you're working in a team, it's once you have talked to the, you know, if they're, a lot of times the writer is the director. If they are separate people, it's good to have that conversation first. What locations are we thinking about? What actors are we thinking about? What equipment are we going to be using? And then the writer can keep that in mind when they come up with a script. It's really good to let one person write the first draft. Especially in something where you're trying to do it quick and with limited resources. If you I've been in situations like this before where it's like everyone sits down and brainstorms and everyone has ideas and everyone feels guilty not taking everyone else's ideas. So it becomes like this weird thing that doesn't make sense because it's like too many cooks. And you try and make something that makes everyone happy and it doesn't work. But if one person takes the limitations that the group has decided upon, writes a script, and then you come together and do a table read and read it, that's when everyone's advice is incredibly useful, because you have a structure. It's not like someone's going to come in and say, well, I want to do a science fiction story. And you're like, well, we already have a script. We can't make it a science fiction story. As you're reading, you're going to realize like, oh, this chunk of dialogue is way too long. You could just cut this 10 paragraphs and say, I'm sad, and it means the same thing. Or you realize like, oh, we just did a read through and it took like 20 minutes to read. This is way too long. We need to cut it down. Or you kind of see people are yawning, or people say, I have a good idea for a joke here. That's when that stuff is useful. So it's very important to have a script before you start shooting something like this. Storyboards are very helpful, because especially for the director to know what you're doing. Like Chonkers would have been impossible without storyboards, especially since I needed to match it with the drawings. So I just figured out like a little comic. You'll notice in each scene there's really like 2 shots. And I just figured out like a lot of it was just backgrounds for Chonkers to be on. So I just point it at a building or something and hold it still for like 20 seconds. And then like the actors. But knowing what you need, once you get there, you can get more stuff. But if you can just check off, I have this, that's very useful. And it helps you think in advance about like, what are you going to do once you get there? And it was able, like a lot of the stuff I shot in the radio station, like people are doing shows, you have a very limited window of time to do stuff. So it's really easy. It's really helpful to be able to get in and be like, this is exactly the 3 shots that I need, get it. And if you have more time, get something else. And just, once you do the table read, everyone puts in their ideas, you get a script, and then you just go out for shooting. Now, there are resources available depending on where you are. I know in Busan, there's a place called the Community Media Center where you can rent equipment for free. You have to sign up, and then they make you take like a 2-hour class on a weekend, just for them to like say, this is what our equipment is, this is how you check it out, this is how you take care of it. And once you've done that, you can just sign up and take it anytime. They got cameras, they got boom mics, they got everything that you need. And I know there's other centers like that. There's places that rent professional equipment, but it all depends on what you want to do with it. If you want to, with a film festival like this, there's a good mix of like, this is a professional film and this is the fun one. Do you want to be, a professional film can also be the fun one, but usually like the one that's kind of like done in a silly way, like with a cell phone and crayons or something like that, is going to be the one that like makes people laugh, because like it kind of breaks the tension. There's some more serious, some more silly, but you never know. You want to make something that you can be proud of outside of that. Like the first film I made for the 24-hour film festival was entirely an in-joke. It was making fun of the prompt. It was like a pun based on the prompt we had to include. And I made it specifically so that like, if you heard this prompt 10 times in other films, and then you hear the pun, it would make the people in that room laugh. And then I was invited to Seoul to show our award-winning film to an audience who knew nothing about the festival. And they're like, what is happening? What are you showing me? And now I don't put it on my website. I don't show anyone because it doesn't make any sense. But you never know what's gonna, like, as an example, not a movie, but I started out in challenge art with, comic films like this. They all evolved from the 24-hour comic, but there's something that Scott McCloud started. He had an idea to do a 24-page comic in 24 hours. And then that evolved into 24-hour play festivals, 24-hour film festivals. And I did the 24-hour comic challenge and I failed. And I just kept expanding it. Eventually I did a 168-hour comic, which is where I spent a week straight making a page per hour. And it was just a fun, silly thing. It looks like I drew it half asleep, in a week, almost dying because I couldn't sleep and barely had time to eat. And there's pages where it's like, there's one page that like I was in the middle of drawing, I was way behind, and then there was a scene where a car crashed, and I'm like, now I wrote myself into a corner. I'm never going to catch up. I got to draw a car crash. And then I turned the page, and the page that I've been using to like keep ink from getting on the table was there, and I'm like, I'm just going to write crash on it and white out, and that's my page. So it's kind of that quick problem solving that like, this is just something to solve this problem. Is not something that I'm going to like, you know, release elsewhere. But you never know, because this comic, I ended up making these 3 characters for the comic. This character ended up starring in a standalone graphic novel that was optioned for a TV series by one of the biggest entertainment companies in the world. They didn't end up making the show, but they worked on a pilot. This character was adapted into another graphic novel that was published by a big company, and I'm trying to get that adapted into a TV show right now. I'm talking with some people. And this character was adapted into a short comic that was published by one of the biggest publishers in the world. So you never know what you're going to create that's going to become something else. So just kind of think about that with what you're making. Are you, you know, just trying to make something that you are proud of and put everything into it, but you don't need to be a professional to make it. You can make something silly, you can make something fun, you can make something imperfect, and it can become something else, or it can stand alone as a fun, you know, thing. I'll say that the way that I got Malcolm McDowell in my, does anybody, you guys know who Malcolm McDowell is, right? He was he's kind of been in films since, I know him from the 70s. I don't know how long when he started, but he was the lead in Clockwork Orange. He's in a million films, and basically there's a website called cameo.com where it's mostly designed for like having your like friends' favorite celebrity say happy birthday to them, where it's like you get like 140 characters to tell them what you want them to say, and then you pay them like $100 or something, and they record a video. It's not really supposed to be for making films. So I didn't tell Malcolm McDowell he was in my movie. He doesn't know that he's in my movie. I just told him that my large cat was sad and needed a pep talk. And then I cast him in the film as the president. The president of the United States, even though he's very English, which was another joke about how English people always play presidents or, you know, American figures. But I mean, it, you know, so that was, you know, try and find weird, whatever resources you have that would make a film fun, just try and go for it. You know, like when I've done stuff before where, you know, I have students, my students are cute. You know, if you have the ability to do that, you know, with like their parents' permission or something. I've cast like you know, students and things before. You know, just use whatever you have that will make your film better. If you want to do it with your phone, that's perfectly acceptable. I made my film with my phone, or try and find some professional equipment. Editing, now hopefully if you're doing something in a short time, what's really nice is if the planning and writing stage, the shooting stage, and the editing stage are 3 different people, because then it becomes like a relay. Like when I wrote, the first day was all me at my desk writing. I send it to Tim, then Tim would spend the day shooting, but then Tim was also the editor, so he did like 2 days straight of work. And this one I did all 3. So I was just on the whole time for 3 days, and it was nuts. It's nice to have collaborators if you can get them. With editing, if you've never edited before, I know a lot of people will automatically have like editing software on their computer that comes free with it. For Chonkers, I used a very simple free software called Shotcut. It's totally free. They don't even bug you to upgrade or anything, but it's very simple. You know, you can't do anything fancy, but you know, a lot of people aren't going to be doing like special effects for films for a festival like this. It literally just put this shot in there, make that a little shorter, put this shot in there. You can make still frames and import those and just kind of put them in order. The adding the cat in, I had an assistant who helped me do the compositing that was in After Effects, but not everybody here is going to be adding an animated cat into their film, so you don't need to worry about that as much. But Shotcut, for most of the stuff people want to do, is very simple, and there's other free software like that, but that's the one that was the easiest to download and easiest to use for free. There are probably better ones that, like, it's a trial and like every 10 seconds it pops up and says, sure, you don't want to upgrade, but Shotcut's just free and easy. And then, yeah, just depending on what you want to make and how you want to get it out there, use whatever resources you have handy and have fun with it. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Nobody has any questions.
This isn't, I don't have so much of a question as I do. I like what, maybe just a statement. I like what you were saying about defining what you're doing here based upon your limitations, and maybe brainstorming limitations first. I think especially if people are filming in their second language or their foreign language, that, brainstorming how that limits you, right? Maybe starting with the language first and then looking at locations and then looking at, your equipment and these things. And that's something we teach our students to do, right? Is how to brainstorm before you write a paper, before you go into something. So I like brainstorming on the negative, I guess. And that might, academically, that's kind of something that gets my brain going into other kinds of fields. So I just kind of wanted to make that statement.
Yeah, limitations are great for creativity. Because if you it's the same thing with like a blank page is impossible to fill, because it's like you can do anything and nothing is good enough. But if you have like any sort of limitation of you can only do this, then it's like, well, I have to defeat this problem. And that's what you're thinking about. You're not thinking about I have to make the perfect thing. I have these specific things. Like, for example, if your limitation is all the actors are speaking in a language that is not their first, maybe you're going to get some like wooden performances as people are like struggling for the words. Maybe you have some actors that aren't as fluent as others. How can you make that style instead of a problem? Are they robots? Are they aliens? Or are you making a film about a foreign language speaker struggling? That's just very, if you make like a romantic comedy where that's kind of the thing between people is one person can't communicate with the other. Or it could just be like, if you want to make it, you could make, like I said, a sci-fi science fiction story. Like one of the previous films we did was called The Thinking Machine. And it was about a Turing test, which is you have two robots and you try and figure out, well, you're talking to two computers and you figure out which one's a real person on the other end and which one's a robot. And so that, something like that, where it's someone speaking unnaturally, what's the reason? That limitation came about because it was shot during COVID. Now, we had one of the people on our team, his health wasn't great. So my big limitation was, how can I shoot a film with these actors where they don't have to get close to each other and they can do it safely? So I wrote one where the two people are on screens and the other person is looking at the screen. And I was very careful to do that. And then they sent me all the photos from set of them in between shots sitting around a table eating together. And I'm like, why did I spend all that time getting you on screens if you're just gonna, but hey, I did the limitations and it made an interesting story because those are the limitations. So yeah, they can be the limitations that are inherent in the project you're doing. They can be the limitations in the safety of what you're doing, or it can just be this is the equipment that I have, or you can just give yourself a limitation. Have someone give you a title and you have to make a film to match that title. Things like that. But yeah, figure out what your limitations are, and again, make that style instead of a problem.
Thank you so much, Jacob, for bringing that up, because like you said, limitations are how we work creatively in a lot of ways. And we're talking about doing a festival where a lot of the people will be teachers or teachers trying to guide their students through the process. And I know when we're teaching, there's a limitation where students are like, but I can't really speak English really, really well, so I don't want to try. You know, I'm not competent yet because I'm not at the level that I'm supposed to be. And I think people approach creative projects that way a lot. And I loved how you just started out, you know, you're an artist, but you're like, I'm not a filmmaker, but I'm making a film and this is how I did it. And I just jumped in and this is the equipment that I had. You know, it's very relatable. And that's really the message that I hope to get out there to everyone, is just have fun with the process. It looks like you had a lot of fun, and
Yeah.
you know, us watching, we're having some good laughs. I mean, in the pandemic, people probably felt a little bit like chompers, sitting at home, eating snacks, getting bigger.
Yeah,
Really loved it.
Chonkers was basically about like the whole idea of it is that it's about the feeling of like there being a big problem that no one else takes seriously and everyone else just jokes about it, and you're like, people are dying. There's
Yeah.
a real problem. But you know, in mine, it's the problem is a big cat. But yeah, like talking about again, talking about limitations, if a lot of people are working with students, that's definitely a limitation, because the students are not going to be the best actors, maybe, but that's your role as a director, is to make that work for you. That's again a limitation. Figure out how to make that style. What can your students do that's going to be fun? Like if you give them something where they're going to be acting really like that's too much for them, if you give one of your students a monologue and they have to like awkwardly say it phonetically, it's going to make them feel uncomfortable. It's going to make the audience feel uncomfortable. And it's your job as a director to not do that. Another project I did was a podcast called Big Data. It was like an audio drama. And like it had people in it like Jermaine Clement from Flight of the Conchords, Taika Waititi, the guy that directed Thor Ragnarok, and Felicia Day, who was like in Supernatural and a bunch of old like geeky shows. And it had like big actors like that, but also it had like 6-year-olds from my English class. And but I cast the kids in roles where they were playing awkward kids. And so it made it really funny and it made them sound amazing, and they get like the biggest laughs. And like one of the funniest things was like with Felicia Day, she's like a very well-known actress, but I was like kind of improvising the scene with the kids first, and then they added a line that was "shut your butt." Something they thought was funny, so I put it in the script for Felicia Day to say, and she recorded herself, and then like she just I apparently enjoyed that line so much she did it, like she spent 20 minutes just saying it every way possible. And so I thought that became a running gag in the show where her character just constantly saying "shut your butt" because I just kept using it. So like the kids made the, you know, everything kind of changed to wrap around them. And I kind of let them use their sense of humor and play a character that fit for them.
That's really great. Me and Ashley have both done a lot of film projects with a bit older students. I would have to say, don't underestimate the students' ability and creativity, because we've been blown away. And I think they're Gen Z, most of my students anyway, and they're more fluent in this language than I am. So setting limitations, but giving them enough freedom where they can actually come up with the ideas that they want. But you're right, like with younger learners, that might be, there would be different kinds of limitations for sure.
Yeah,
I wanted to ask
just
you a
know
question.
what those, sorry.
So if you were going to contribute a film for our festival, which we would love for you to consider, but what would be the first idea that comes across your mind? You're going to do a film, maybe you're going to act in it, or the actors that are in it cannot use their first language. Where would you begin? Like, what would be the things that go through your mind when you're thinking about where to get started?
Like the first thing that came to my mind that I just came up with earlier, as I guess that proves the point, because I was randomly trying to think of an example and I said a rom-com, where like I would say like, okay, why don't we make a rom-com, cast me and my wife where I can only speak Korean, she can only speak English, and kind of, you know, show the impact of that on our relationship or something. Or maybe yeah, just I would try to think of something that maybe other people aren't going to do, because especially if it's a film festival and people are watching a lot of films, um, especially like probably a lot of films will be set in classrooms, maybe, I imagine, or apartments. Um, so try and think of something outside of that, just because you want to stand out a little bit. Think of something that mostly that you're going to have fun making. You're going to have to put a lot of work into this, and if you're not having fun making it, it's not going to be great for you. So think of a genre you like, think of a type of character that you like, and figure out how to make that fit with those limitations that you have. And like I was saying with what you said about the students, yeah, students can do amazing work, and it's just important to know what their skills are, what they're good at, so that you can give them a job that fits with what they're good at. Um, and yeah, just think about the resources you have and what you think would be fun to make.
Excellent. I would love to encourage, I bet you there are some good questions out there that people want to ask. Oh yeah, Kinsella.
Yes, it's an oddly specific question, but I was just wondering the software that you recommended for editing, whether that actually allows you to add a soundtrack to the, it does?
Yeah.
Excellent, okay.
Yeah, it has layers and everything, so you can add multiple layers of image and add multiple layers of sound. The other thing I was gonna say with sound, make sure you check out freesound.org.
Oh.
Sure that's right. Yeah, freesound.org has free sound effects. There's different licenses. Some you can use however you want. Some you have to credit them. Just check the rules for each one. But you can even say like, I need a sound of a door. You can say a big door, a small door, a creaky door, anything you want, and just kind of the one thing you want to make sure you do is layer sounds and like bring down the sound. Like a lot of times when people add in sound effects, it sounds really fake because it's like everything stops here and it's this perfect sound. But if you like just bring the sound of that really low, it's not like the door opening is not the point of the scene. So you just want people to subconsciously not feel weird that the door is not making a sound because the mic doesn't always pick it up. And then you can also get room tone on there. Just like you can say like empty room sound and just kind of layer that. It just makes it feel more natural. Sometimes just adding, you know, bits of just like dogs barking or something, depending on what feeling you want to get. With as far as music, if you want to be careful with what music you use, because if you use something copyrighted that limits what you can do with it, you can really never show it to anyone, because you put it on YouTube, it's gonna be taken down. There is a website called incompetech.org, and that has royalty-free music as long as you credit him. There's a lot of other websites, but that's all by one guy. It's all the same license. It's very easy to look through. You can sort stuff by tone, by genre, by speed, by length. And he has a lot of really good, in every possible genre, scary music, funny music. That's a good place to check out. And if you Google like royalty-free music, there's lots of other places, but that's a very good, quick place to look. Especially if you're working under time limitations. But incompetech.org. And yeah, lots of good places to get sound, and Shotcut does layer them in there.
Can I ask one more question? Again,
Yeah.
very specific. To make the end credit roll, is there anything that you would recommend? Any tech or just?
Yeah, I mean, I think mine was just still images. I don't remember, but yeah, the easiest way to do it is to just make still images and then put them in the timeline one after the other. You know, you can make it in any photo editing software. Either just put a black background or take like just a background from one of the scenes in your film, like you know, take a photo out the window that was in the background, and then just put text on top, you know, and just break it up into, here's the card with the director, here's a card with the lead actors, here's the card with all the extras, here's who did this. And that's the easiest way to do it. And then, like, if you're putting in the editing software, you just drop it right in there, just like you're dropping in a film clip, and you stretch it however long you want it.
Thank you. Great. Very helpful.
Thanks for the questions. Anyone else? Burning questions. We have Ryan right here in front of us live, and he's usually so busy. Come on. No? Yes?
Yeah, Ashley?
Yeah, I wanted to ask a quick question about your experience kind of working as a team on this project. I know you mentioned that, you know, you kind of, you know, sent it to the next person and had one person kind of do it at a time. Was that mostly just because of the time limit, or if you had a little bit more time to work on this project, would you do it in the same way? Like, kind of, what's your approach to the filmmaking team when you put it together?
I mean, filmmaking is a very collaborative medium, and it's great to work with people, especially if it's people you trust. And you know, I love Tim. He's a good friend of mine. He's an amazing filmmaker, and I know that I can write some nonsense and hand it to him, and then he's gonna put everything into making it. You know, he can do things that I can't do. I can't make the Thinking Machine. I can't make The Captain, which is the previous films. Tim couldn't make Chonkers because that's a very different style, and you know, so working with people, you can make things that you couldn't otherwise make, and you get ideas that you couldn't otherwise do. I will say one thing I should have mentioned: if you work with a group, once again, it's make sure you work with people you know and trust, and you should have everyone sign a release. If you Google like release form, it's just a very simple thing that like if someone's going to be involved in your film, they have to sign that they're working on your film. They acknowledge they're working on your film, and you can use their work in the film. We have had situations on past teams where someone got mad at a team and then said, well, I didn't sign a release form, so you can't show the movie because I'm in it. Or on my team, even though like I had seen that happen previously, and I'm like, I gotta be really careful who I work with. Only people I've worked with before and only people I trust. And then while my team was out working, one of my actors needed to get a shot when I wasn't there, and she asked her friend to hold the camera for 3 seconds. And then after the film was finished, that friend threatened to sue me for tricking her into working on a film and said I couldn't use her shot in the film. And so I had to re-edit the film to take that shot out. It was a whole thing. But yeah, just everyone that touches your film, maybe get them to sign a thing that just, you know, it's not a fancy Hollywood contract. It literally just something that says, I acknowledge that I'm working on a film and my work will be used in the film. Something like that. But there's, you know, if you Google those, you'll find them. But yeah, working with people is amazing. I love collaboration in any art form. That's what is great about groups like Liquid Arts and events like this, is it gives you the opportunity to work together on something in a kind of a safe environment to, you know, everybody has the same goal and can work together.
Can I just ask a quick question about how many people did you have on your team for Chonkers?
With Chonkers, it was me doing the writing, the storyboarding, the directing, the animating, some of the acting, the cinematography, the editing. I did a lot on that just because I really wanted to. I just wanted to see if I could do it. I did have my actors, and I did have my friend Jan that helped me do the compositing. But other than actors and compositing, and of course the music was Gino Brand did the music, but most everything else was me, which I really would have been a lot easier if I had more people, because I gave myself way too many jobs. But yeah, and well, like for example, in the previous ones that Tim directed, there was me as writer, Tim as director. Tim had a producer who would help find locations and help organize things. And then I think Tim also did lighting and sound, and then Tim also was the editor. But those were all jobs that if you could find someone that could help you with them, are very useful.
I'd like to comment or sort of ask. So you've mentioned some things to be careful of, like the release form. That is really good advice. Thank you. But through the creative process, how do you see people getting closer, and what are some of the benefits and the joys of working with people? Like, how does it change your life? How has it changed your life in the past? Because you've done some other projects that you mentioned.
Yeah, for me, working with other artists is kind of like my vice. Like, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't like a lot of things. I don't drink coffee. Like, I spend too much money collaborating. Like, when I did that podcast, I mentioned big data. Like that, I didn't make any money off of that. I just kept spending money on hiring people that I thought would be cool to work with. And like, I have another podcast that I started just because I wanted to work with more people, and it was so much fun that I spent a bunch of money on it, and then I've been too busy making other books to even finish it. I just really like working with people. I like seeing things get bigger. I like seeing a nugget of an idea, someone else running with it and doing something I couldn't imagine. With a lot of my comic books, other artists illustrate them, and it's amazing seeing them bring things to it that I couldn't do. The band book club, working with my wife, that's her story, and it's a lot of times what people who make a book, like I was invited. Basically, I found out the story that my wife had, and then a publisher offered me a book deal on it. And there are a lot of people like me who do that, where like the person the story's about would be the subject, and they're like, but it's my book, I'm going to write it. And I'm like, no, if you want me to write it, you got to hire her as a co-writer because it's her story. And it's a very different book than it would have been if I considered her a subject and just interviewed her and did my own thing. Everyone has their own ideas, everyone has their own past, everyone has their own skills, everyone has their own techniques, and working with it makes good art, and it is fun, and it teaches you more about the world and the people in it than you could ever do just sitting down and being like, no, this is my thing, I'm going to make it.
I love that. So we've been here for about an hour, which I think is a good healthy dose of time. Are there any final questions that you guys want to ask before we wrap it up?
May I?
Yes, of course. Yes.
Now, in the time of Corona pandemic, if every actor had to participate in the filming from home, is there anything that you would suggest? Like in the past, I had my students do Zoom recording. This is a very amateurish question, but yeah.
No, that's definitely something I've thought for the last 2 film festival. That's something I've thought about where, like I said, the first one, I had it be robots on a computer screen. The second one with Chonkers, that was another big reason I wanted to do animated segments, is that like I could just have my wife interacting with a cartoon cat that was not in the room. And then really we only need one person on the screen at a time. And then the people that were in a scene together were always wearing masks, and I kind of wrote that into the film. But there are things you can do, you know, you could have there are major Hollywood movies that take place entirely on a computer screen. There are major Hollywood movies that take place over video chat. So you could do you could literally make a film on Zoom and just screen record it. That's a movie. You could do you know, if everyone's filming their own bits, you could have like that's a limitation that you make a style. If everyone's like FaceTiming or something, you have people film their own things on their own phone and send you the file. You could do it with puppets. Like I said, my first film, I just drew characters, put them on popsicle sticks, and then have your actors just record their voice and just kind of jiggle a popsicle stick along with what they're saying. Or you could do some other weird new thing that I would never think of, but use that as a limitation to do something fun and weird, and it can make people laugh because they see you solving a problem. It's a problem that maybe they were thinking about too, and it becomes part of the story.
Or maybe you can do a parody of a fairy tale using the puppets or something. Okay, thank you. Great ideas.
Thank you, Yoko. That was really good. That was a good question. Very fruitful. I think there are a lot of different mediums and ways to approach the possibilities.
And narration is a big thing not to forget about. Like, everything doesn't have to be dialogue. You could have people record narration and put it over images of the city. You could go out and just shoot, you know, cool stuff that fits your story, and then have people narrating over it. So problems to solve.
Yeah, I think anyone can just start from where they're at. I'm looking at the quote that we pulled for our theme. This is the theme to our event, starting with the quote by James Cameron. Pick up a camera, shoot something, no matter how small, no matter how cheesy, no matter whether your friends and your sisters star in it. You know, I think that that's really similar to what you shared with us today, Ryan. You know, just jumping in, starting where you're at. And I'm really excited to see what will come about from just asking people to do that. And we're doing it partly because we're asking our students to do a lot of things this year that are similar. So some of it can be, you give it a try yourself, so we can get the sense of what it's like to be in our students' shoes, but just for fun too. Like, we're bored. We want to do cool stuff. So I'm really, really happy to be collaborating with artists in the country, and, you know, like making connections between the academic world, the teaching world, the art world, and just getting people to think outside the box or meet people that they wouldn't ordinarily meet. So this is really exciting for us. That's all that I had to say in this moment. Anyone else?
I was gonna say, that's the fun thing about a project like this, that it's a short little challenge. You just make a film, and if it ends up terrible, who cares? It's a thing you did with your students. It's it's all fun. You never have to show it to anybody else, but you might accidentally make something amazing and be super proud of it and be like, am I a filmmaker now? I think I'm a filmmaker now. You never know.
And even just finishing it is an accomplishment. There were moments when you're like, I don't think I can do it. I don't think it's gonna happen, but it did.
yeah, I like to think of filmmaking like the ratatouille philosophy. Anyone can cook, anyone can make a film, because really anyone can now. Think back to the time when it seemed like an impossible thing, but we all have little movie makers in a little box that we carry in our pocket, you know, and you can catch stuff on the fly. It's really fun to think about the time that we live in and why not take advantage of it, you know? So any final words? I don't want to cut people off if they're in the middle of thinking of a question. Any last questions that are floating around out there? Little question, big question? Okay, well, maybe Ryan, if we want to get in touch with you to ask questions about your art, is there a best way that you prefer? I could drop in the chat.
My email is ryan@ryanestrada.com. And if you go to ryanestrada.com, all of my other contact information is there. All the social medias and whatnot.
Excellent. So I'm putting that in the chat, and we're going to, you know, share this recording and some of the information that you bequeathed upon us today. So thank you so much for coming and being with us today. It's really exciting to have you with us. I have one good memory. Well, I have a few good memories because I've been in the community in Busan and bopping around, but there was one time, I don't know if Ryan remembers, I went to the Busan Film Festival and there were some directors talking outside. There was Quentin Tarantino and Bong Joon-ho before he was quite as famous, but still pretty famous. And I was like, where is this happening? What's happening? And I saw Ryan, whom I'd met before, and he helped me find a front row seat. And I actually have some video footage of them talking. And that is like one of the most exciting days of my life. So, and here we have him again. You know, I think the events that we're going to have are chances to get to know new people. And like, yeah, like Ryan said, like, you never know what you're going to make if you just give it a shot. So we look forward to having people join our next filmmaking tips and tricks workshop. And we might have some workshops where you can maybe have conversations with people about problems that you're facing as you go along, or questions you have, or looking for people to join your team. Just let us know what you need and we will make it. Okay, so Kenneth, did you want to say any final words on behalf of Liquid Arts?
Just want to say thank you for allowing us to participate and provide a connection to someone like Ryan. And I look forward to more time together. And thank you very much, Ryan. You were great.
Thank you.
Okay. Wonderful. Have a great evening, everyone. Enjoy your night and see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much,
Thank you so much for the wonderful tips.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ryan.
We help.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.